Welcome back. We have a very special guest in studio this morning. If you're a longtime Chicagoan, you might recognize him. You might notice a slight resemblance. Jake Hamilton said, "Anthony, there's a guy in the hall who looks exactly like you." Anyway, my dad, the recently retired Phil Ponce, has graciously agreed to do a series of segments with us here on Good Day Chicago this summer. And Dad, the idea here is for you to join us from time to time to share with our viewers some life lessons, some fatherly wisdom, your adventures in retirement, your unique perspective on Chicago and politics, while you still have your wits about you.
Well, I don't know how much longer that will be, so I'm glad we're taking advantage of what little cognitive abilities I have now.
The clock is ticking, right? Okay, so before we get to a really cool story about what you've been up to, get us updated on what you've been doing since retirement.
Well, since retirement, as you know, I have two passions. One of them is gardening, and the other one is spending time with my grandchildren. Yesterday, as you well know, I spent 6 hours with two of my grandchildren, including
Theo, yeah.
So I would say that is my focus. I think maybe I was born to be a grandfather, actually. I think I'm a better grandfather than I was a father.
We could talk about that. Perhaps. Well, as he mentioned, his biggest passion outside of the grandkids is gardening. And to kick off our series this morning, we have the story of really what is a remarkable and serendipitous discovery that he and my mom made when they moved into the North Suburban house that they bought for their golden years.
We bought the house, and then the previous owners were bringing out documents pertaining to the house, and they said, "Oh, you might want to take a look at this."
A schematic landscape design dated 1940 unearthed out of the home's archives.
Here's the driveway into the house.
But it wasn't just any old drawing. The unrealized landscape plans were hand-drawn by this man, Jens Jensen, one of the most influential landscape architects in American history.
Well, simply put, you could think of Jens Jensen as the Frank Lloyd Wright of landscapes.
And I looked at it, and my head almost exploded.
Jensen happened to be friends with the home's original owners. And for a gardening nut like my dad, the discovery was the equivalent of a musician finding an unreleased Beatles track.
And I felt like I had found this little hidden treasure that was part of Chicago area history.
But what was even more exciting was to find out that the property was purchased by clients who really would care about Jensen. That was the part that I couldn't get over.
Historian Julia Backrack says Jensen was the first architect to celebrate the qualities of the Midwestern landscape during an era where most native plants were thought of as little more than weeds.
It was such an unusual thing to even notice that there was anything wonderful that was already here.
Jensen's unique philosophy eventually gained him famous clients like Henry Ford and the Florsheim family, and he went on to design many of Chicago's most famous parks, including Humboldt Park, Douglas Park, and the Garfield Park Conservatory.
I saw this plan, and these visions just went through my mind of what this property could be.
Problem was, when Mom and Dad acquired the property last year, half of the 1.5-acre lot was covered in highly invasive buckthorn, which was spreading so quickly it had choked out nearly everything else on the property.
Buckthorn is this invasive tree that kills native plants, kills native trees, and it's spread by birds eating the berries.
It took crews weeks to clear the buckthorn using heavy equipment, leaving the original blank canvas that the master architect worked off of. Fast forward to this week, crews are finally installing what Jensen first envisioned 84 years ago.
We're using the same trees that he called for, the same shrubs that he called for, the same location that he called for.
73 native trees and shrubs that Jensen called for are now in the soil.
This is hawthorn right here, and this is native stuff, and it's really pretty.
Just the start of what my dad is hoping will mature into a masterpiece.
It's just so exciting to see this develop now.
It's a piece of history that's been entrusted to us, and we want to honor that history.
Very cool stuff. I am so excited to see how this all unfolds. We'll be following it every step of the way. If this were a marathon, Dad, where are you in the project, would you say? What mile are you on?
Okay, out of 26.2 miles,
Yeah.
I'd say we're probably at about mile 13 or 14. There are a lot more shrubs that need to go in, and there are a lot of more native flowers. So I think it's going to be really nice. But basically, as I said, it's a part of Chicago area history, and we want to honor it.
This is going to keep you busy for sure. Okay, before we let you go, Dad, we are coming on off the heels of that presidential debate last night. You've moderated a ton of similar debates in your long career. What's your initial take?
Well, my initial take is based on my experience as a moderator. There are candidates who are really good debaters who are terrible candidates. Think of Rod Blagojevich. And there are really good candidates who are so-so at debating. But this is a huge problem for Joe Biden. And the only person who appears to have any real influence with him is First Lady Jill Biden. I would not want to be one of Biden's advisors today because everyone is focusing on his performance and not so much on the untruths that Donald Trump presented last night. So 6 months ago, anything can happen, but it wouldn't surprise me if there was some drama in the offing.
Yeah, it wouldn't be surprised either, Dad. Thank you so much. And we're so excited to have you around from time to time this summer, sir.
Excellent.
Thanks
I
for
can't wait.
Getting up early for us, sir.